Hello everyone, welcome back to the lab and also welcome to a new episode of Road to World 2024 where I will be documenting my grind, my journey of myself competing in the competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG and eventually or hopefully make to the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship of 2024. That being said, let's start today's new episode. Like I mentioned the last one, I during the entire March decided to take a break of Yu-Gi-Oh! Just take some more time, kind of get some rest. However, I did still pay attention to the whole meta, also while testing some interesting theories that you probably saw in the previous episode. So this episode is about the end of March, where finally, I guess the break is over. I decided to go to, there was like a PS5 tournament at my local nearby, and also some of the IRL regionals that I attended, which were some pretty decent big-sized regionals. So that being said, let's hop into the deck list first. This, you see on the screen, was during, I think March 23rd. That weekend, there was a PS5 tournament at my local. Shout out to my local Phenomenal Gaming for hosted monthly or bi-monthly. And I've been going to nearly every single one of them. And they are great locals. So this deck list you see right now is the one I used, which is similar in some ways to what I piloted at the Las Vegas at the end of February. But there are definitely changes that happened during this entire month. I was on a break. I didn't really enter much tournaments in like early, mid-March, but I was still changing my decks. So let's start with just some of the details in the deck. Snake Eye ratios, standard. Don't really need to explain much. Birch, a lot of pure build isn't playing it, but this is part of the Parallel Exceed package where I've been going this way instead of Jessencrum. And I prefer Parallel a lot more, to be honest, due to the simple fact, extra deck, there's just so many extra deck spaces now I don't have to play any synchros. And then even the packet, like quote-unquote package I need for Parallel is just Banshee with a second copy of SP, which having a second copy of SP just always like never a bad thing to do. So overall, this is just, in my opinion, a very efficient and a way, almost a better way in my eyes, to go to a version that I prefer, I've been liking. And so what you see right now is just that. However, with the addition of Parallel Exceed, I made a decision to cut down the number of Diabell Star. Diabell is a starter, is an extender. However, it is a kind of neg 1 to star kind of thing. And because Wanted exists. Wanted, unlike it's already being limited in OCG, in TCG there's still 3 Wanted. The total number of Diabell Star in the whole deck is like a lot. And there has been a lot of time where I open in tournaments or testing in my opening hand, there were a lot of starters, but a good amount of them were just different copies of Diabell. And that feels kind of bad. And those kind of hands usually not able to play into a lot of hand traps from my opponent. And that usually, even when I was winning, I feel like I was taking more risk with those kind of hands. So it was just like, yeah, there is Parallel Exceed as another starter or extender where I can lower the number of Diabell Stars, just lower the redundancy. That's why I anyways decided just cutting a Diabell. 5 Diabell total is still a good number to see them. So that's fine. And also like Diabell alone feels bad because the most benefit you can get is if you start with Wanted and you get the additional draw later in the line. However, number of Diabell Star doesn't matter of how often I see Wanted. So at the end, it's like, this is okay. In addition, I think Parallel Exceed is so fantastic. While Diabell Star isn't pairing well with Parallel, so at the end, I think, yeah, this is probably the less useful starter in this version of my deck. So I just lowered it down to 2. I don't think I've missed it. I think it's pretty good. And then let me see. Let me skip the non-engine part for a bit. The rest of the engine part are sort of standard. I did not play 1-for-1. Unlike the Jessynchrome version or Fire King version, which you have a more valuable level 1 to summon in the form of either Jessynchrome or Ponix. In this one, because now the standard combo is Ash Pop Field Bench the Oak, after that, there isn't really a good level 1 monster to summon off 1-for-1 as extender in this build, which make 1-for-1 just like another worse copy of Diabell, or in some cases just like a very hefty cost for not really much reward. So at the end, I think Parallel just doing the job better, and then because also Parallel works under Shifter, right? Like I mentioned in the previous episode. So I ended up just not even play 1-for-1, which is a different thing compared to a lot of other, I guess, quote-unquote standard pure version of Snake Eye with Jessynchrome. And then the non-engine portion, I still going with the 15 hand trap, like how it was at the beginning of format during the UDS and then Vegas time. There definitely has been a lot of other versions throughout the whole month. There's the cash tier version, kind of build a more like mid-range. There is the ball wipe approach with either striker cards plus like tactics and droplets, or just a lot of like taking control kind of cards with like thrust talents, even snatch steal, change of heart, and mind control. So at the end, I still prefer the hand traps. It still feel like it gave me the most safety, most guarantee rewards, and then not making the game too dicey. So, and a lot of people has also been tested other versions. Those are all good versions, just not necessarily the better versions. So at the end, I still just like these. These are still good cards going first, even I draw them. Compared to like the ball breakers, like going first holding like even a droplet, the best ball breaker going first, it still feels kind of bad, let alone holding like a death thrust or talent. But just within the hand traps, there are still interesting ratios that I probably only myself been doing. The standard 3 Nip, 3 Valor, 3 Imperm, those are the same. But the other 6, 2 Ash, 2 Mourner, 2 Joel. I haven't seen anyone really going this ratio. Throughout my whole career playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh!, I kind of slowly developed a habit or a theory that I've been following by myself, where if a card is strong enough, I play 3 copies of it. Makes sense? Even despite it's a hard once per turn. And if I play something at 3, I should expect to see it. See at least 1 copy of it. Sometimes even a duplicate of it. However, cards I play 2 of are usually cards that I don't mind seeing it, but they are not the fantastic thing. And if I play it at 2, I should still expect to see it, but I shouldn't expect to see duplicate copies of it. I shouldn't be expecting seeing a pair of the 2 off that I put in my deck. So, based on this, looking at the hand traps, Ash, Mourner, Joel are all just weird hand traps at the moment in the game. Ash specifically, it's a fire hand trap. It's the only fire hand trap being played. But Ash, my opponent, will turn on, or in the mirror match, will turn on the heater line, that making Ash not as impactful as other hand traps would be, or as in other matchup would be. So at the end, Ash has been always a weird hand trap in my eyes, and I never liked Ash, particularly in this current format. Mourner, on the other hand, Mourner in my eyes just more copies of Valor and Imperm, because I'm already maxing out 3 and 3 for those. So this is technically a 7th copy of 7th and 8th copy of like Imperm or something. However, this is a worse copy. This, first of all, doesn't hit Snake Eye Ash on the normal summon compared to Valor Imperm. This made this card only works on like other starters for such as Diabell or just only extenders. So make it worse. Second of all, unlike Valor Imperm, this is a hard once per turn. So drawing 2 copies of it feels just sad. It's already a worse copy, and it's sometimes could even be a dead copy. And because of that fall into the logic where I don't ever want to draw double, like 2 copies of Mourner, so I just play only 2. Then Droll. Droll isn't technically a hard once per turn, but Droll most of the time functions as a hard once per turn. The only merit of like having 2 Drolls in hand is probably only like what? You are able to dodge some call by or cross out on the first Droll because you just change to the second one. Or you if opponent, for example, they searched the first time with things like Snake Eye Ash, and you draw them, they chain to the draw with like a Wanted as a quick play spell to search, and you follow with a second draw, kind of just negate a Wanted here. That's the only niche it has for being not technically a hard one per turn. But most of the time, like if you draw 2 draw, you know one of them most likely be dead. And Droll, even by itself, it has been losing popularity throughout the entire format. At the beginning, during like February, right after Phantom Nightmare was released, there were a lot more Fire King variants existed in the format, making Droll like a more impactful hand trap against those variants. But throughout the whole month, the number of Fire King has been almost drastically decreased. I think right now the number of Fire King probably arguably is less or at most only equal to Pure. To the point Droll is not good. Droll against Pure is like really not as good. Like you even see from some of the results from YCS Las Vegas that a lot of pro players has been either completely cutting Droll or from the main deck, or just play only 1 copy of it, citing the rest as like a cross-out target more in the main deck. And that's about it. However, I partially disagree. I think Droll is still, in particular, like Droll alone, yes, they are right. What people saying about it, what people treating Droll is correct. However, we're in a format where it's more about the quantity than the individual quality. Without playing Droll, hypothetically, it's almost not possible to get to 15 hand trap. Like I mentioned earlier about the reason why I only want to play less copy of Ash and Mourner. If I don't play Droll, the only way I get to 15 hand trap is play the standard 9, and then in addition with like 3 Ash, 3 Mourner, then I had those problems. Potentially seeing duplicates of these having that hand trap in hand. Or I play the quote-unquote worst hand trap, things like Bell, Crow, Skullmeister, even Phantasme. Those are ultimately just worse copies than Droll. And overall, like I think Droll is still okay pair into a lot of hand traps. Also because a lot of people have been, because other people has been dropping Droll, resulting more people just ignoring Drolls. Therefore, they are getting punished harder by Droll, apparently. So overall, I think this is just still, I want to play some number of Droll just to make sure the quantity of my hand trap in my deck still reaching a line that I want it to be, which is 15 at the moment. But the quality individually, I just don't want to see any dead hand trap in my hand. However, talking about dead hand trap, there's still 1 copy that could be dead. Like I'm still playing Nibiru, one of the hard ones per turn hand trap. That if I draw 2 of them, 1 of them is dead. However, I think Nib is also being weird. A lot of pro players have said Nib along because how the combo lines being evolving, it's getting worse and worse to the point Nib by itself without any other hand trap is like not doing anything at all. However, Nib is still by far the best hand trap when we talking about a pair of some hand traps. Nib plus any of these arguably is still just almost game winning in some shape or form. And so because of this sheer strength of Nib, and also because Nib going first specifically is probably the best hand trap, since the opponent most likely will have to summon enough times while breaking boards and not be able to take care of preventing Nib happening. So Nib going first is still almost one of the best card to play, and just these following reasons resulting Nib worth the risk of drawing 2 copies while still playing a maximum of 3. So now you see this is my lines of hand trap that I've been playing almost the entire format, and I've been liking it. I barely ever see like duplicate copies of these because, like I said, if I play 2 copies, I shouldn't be expecting seeing both of them. The odds of that is relatively low. So I've been enjoying live hand traps or live pairs of hand traps more often than whoever's not playing draw or other ratios. So that's pretty much the hand trap theory that I've been playing, and I liked it. The other non-engine, or the last non-engine, is Crossout. Crossout is a weird card. It's been going into my main end side multiple times. I know it has to exist somewhere in my deck, but because we are like, this is still a format where there's the sheer amount of Snake Eye variants, quote unquote mirror matches, are just still there. In some cases, Crossout is a solemn judgment, because if I'm able to save it, I'm able to use it to hit other people's engine pieces in the mirror match, which is no other card can do. And honestly, some of the partial reasons was I need my crossouts to combat other people's crossouts, which made me almost have to play crossout because other people are also playing crossouts. And there are also a situation where my current side is kind of packed and don't really have any spaces to fit the crossout in there. And looking at all my side cards, I think crossout might just be the best one compared to maining anything else from my side. And funny enough, even going second, where crossout is technically known as not doing as great, in my version, I have done it in a mirror match where I just cross out a Flamebird Dragon. Yes, I won't have Flamebird Dragon access for the rest of the whole turn while breaking boards, but Parallel exceeds kind of being able to just fill the missing link bodies to still perform whatever necessary OTKs or board breaking is needed. So at the end, I just liked it as in the main deck. There's another reasons where I guess we'll talk about while I get to some of the extra deck combos. So the extra deck, more than half of them are standard. The only thing not standard, or the SP and the second SP and the Banshee Banshee as a package, like I mentioned earlier, is the package for Parallel Exceed, and it's never really a bad thing to have a second SP. So these cards has been there doing very well. But the other cards I am playing, which a lot of people are not, is reconsidering Hiso and Sunlight Wolf. So hear me out. Since the UDS middle of February, where Jesse won the event, right? We all saw Jesse's list, the Fire King list, after the event. It was particularly an interesting list. And not necessarily talking about any details about that list. Overall, choosing Fire King was not a decision, like, well, it was definitely a consideration I had, but was not the decision I made at the end for the UDS or even for the whole format so far. I didn't like the Fire King cards. I think the Fire King, or specifically the Fire King portion of the deck, are very clunky, and they are vulnerable to specific hand traps like Droll. However, at the very beginning of that time, mid-late February, everyone was maining deck all 3 copies of Droll, unlike now. then it definitely raised me a question since then. How did Jesse performed so well at the UDS while with Fire Kings while everyone's having drawing them in, right? Obviously, one of the big reasons is it's Jesse, but this cannot be the only reason, right? So with that kind of question in mind, I look deep into the details in his deck. I had some conclusion at the end. He was out of probably the entire 13, 14 Snake Guy users at the UDS, he was probably the only one main deck or main decking crossout. Unlike other people like myself who was siding it. And because main deck crossout, it allowed him to kind of alleviate the draw problem a lot more than a lot of other people did. So because of that, his Fire King portions were able to operate without worrying about being under draw. And that probably make him able to outgrind a little bit better or even enter the grind state where Fire King cards shines. So with that kind of logic, what if I'm able to reuse it, kind of recreate the situation, right? I thought about it, what if I'm also just maining crossout right now, which is now it's more a standard thing, but also playing something that I discarded at the very beginning of the format, or specifically Hiso. Hiso was particularly bad at the beginning in the pure version because Sunlight doesn't really have anything like Fire King Keyring that needed to be recycled. So Sunlight Wolf isn't really having a good use in the deck, let alone Hiso under draw. When a draw is resolved, Hiso just nearly has no effect. Making that as the ending board, not have the draw in your turn, only get the draw in opponent's turn, is almost not worth the spot to play the card. But with the help of crossout in main, with the decline usage of draw and Lockbird recently, I feel like this problem is almost no longer existing. Now, because more than half of the time I'm not under draw, I'm not even worrying about being drawed, I think it's time to reconsidering Hiso as a card, even in the pure. I know Fire King variants still play this as just like a fire thing to go through in the middle, but in pure version, I think it's also a possible consideration. Like, look at it, there are so many hand traps in my list, which means there are so many good cards to just rip off Hiso even in my opponent's turn. If my Hiso drawing at least one hand trap, I think I'm winning. If my Hiso drawing both of the draws were hand traps, I think I'm just win on the spot. And that's a pretty good trade. Paying 1k life is usually not mattering because the Snake Eye Mirror is relatively quick since now everyone knows how to play. And usually the game is decided by just breaking the whole board. OTK was more than 8k. 8k and a 6k doesn't make that much difference. And in addition, I have Parallel Exceeds providing extra link bodies. Surprisingly, he's also a Cyber's monster. So I found out some combo lines, and just with the ending board of Hiso, just draw into some other things. And the other reason, ending on Appaloosa, or even IP or SP, has been feeling more and more risky every single day. The board breaking version, almost like trying to capitalizing me ending on Appaloosa by just triple attack taking it, that's usually detrimental to the game state, because most of my negates are just on Appaloosa. However, in if I'm making a Hiso, they can take whatever, right? Because more my interruptions are the cards I drew or the hand traps I draw that stays in my hand. So it doesn't matter how they take my monster on the board. It nearly doesn't matter as long as I'm still hand trapping them down like a nib afterwards. So overall, I think this is just a better meta call at the moment. I like the package a lot, and I'll talk about it. How often it just win me on the spot because my Hiso just start I think my whole deck with the Snake Eye combo cards And then I just draw into one or even two hand traps and I just win on the spot. So that's the change I made in my extra deck, which it performed me very well. Sidewise, this is also something kind of been different a lot since the beginning of the format. First of all, some time cards. These are just there. The doggo hasn't been played, hasn't been used for a while. It's almost there, just like what if I needed it? What if in the situation, in the right situation, right? Like more than half of the time, I'm pretty much almost playing a 12 side cards. But in the moment where, in the situation, it can shine, it's probably better than any other cards I can play. So I just always kept it. Spoiler, I eventually cut it for other things, but we'll go through it later. Then, Bell also has been performing a lot worse because people now know the lines better and been doing lines that just kind of immune to Bell. So Bell has been but Bell is still needed just to pump up the number of my hand trap after siding, because that's the main strategy. And it's also one of the very few hand trap that cover voiceless a lot better and runic, like runic fountain specifically. So I think Bell is still worth the spot. It's just not as good as I was at the beginning of the format. Then there are the cards that I wasn't really siding for any specific deck. I was siding specifically for Summer Limit. The cards, I'll say the anti-Summer Limit side cards. Fernier, Pankratops, and Lightning Storm. Let's talk about it this way. You remember me talking about playing Shifter in Snake Eyes last episodes, right? But here's still a problem. Even if I Shifter my opponent, they just set their Summer Limit. What am I going to do? I couldn't even break the board, and Shifter wear off in their following turn. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't set up anything under their Summer Limit. They just out their own Summer Limit. Now they play. I'm probably still losing to it. So I quickly realized Summer Limit is that big of a problem of the format, and realized I need to side things for that more than decks. And since Summer Limit is almost the main strategy for not just Snake Eyes but even Voiceless. So here are the anti-Summer Limit cards. Fernier. Let's start with the other one. Pankratops. Pankratops, in my opinion, is the best one out of all three kinds I played. Pankratops is another Fernier, where Fernier has already showed some usage recently, even with the Cashteira variant. But Fernier has a downside that Pank doesn't, where if my opponent has, for example, a negate, like an imperm, next to his Summer Limit, Fernier's never outing this board, or even touching it. But Pank can just walk around it, ignore everything there, which make Pank a superior copy of Fernier going second specifically. Second of all, Fernier, it's good enough at 2. It's the better thing about Fernier is it works going first, where Pank isn't. But I still don't need that many copy of Fernier. It's a good thing. It's not a necessary thing. If I'm able to full combo, I don't care if I have a Fernier or not. So that's I think Fernier is like not worth a 3 off in my side. A 2 off is enough. The only time I wish I had a third was the one time I played against a Cashteira, and I opened a Fernier thinking I'm okay. My opponent Rice Heart hit my second Fernier, and I lost because I couldn't grab a second off a follow-up the turn after. But that's such a niche moment that I think I can just ignore it. And then there's Lightning Storm. So compared to other backer removal, Cosmic and then even Feather Duster, I prefer Lightning Storm the most. I guess I can talk about why by emphasizing why not the other two. I usually, in general, I like cards that functions well against specific things I need to. However, they also need to function well if the situation isn't met. Be more specific. If there is a summon limit on my opponent's field at the end of their combo, obviously Duster and Cosmic are good at removing it. However, in a situation where I drew those anti-summon limit cards, where my opponent didn't draw their summon limit, suddenly this Duster and Cosmic are just feel dead in my hand. Duster wiping all the back rows, yes, it can hit some like random imperm or even cross out, but they probably change their cross out just calling some of my engine piece, which still kind of does what the cross out does. However, Cosmic, because how the combo line is now, because everyone is doing the line where they benched IP, they use the field spell to summon IP first, and if I Cosmic here, they will chain the Flamebird to bring the IP again. To the point, I think Cosmic is no longer even a playable card against pure variants. Against Fire King, yeah, still has the merit to hit Island, but even hitting Island, wiping away their whole board, I don't think they care as much because Fire King has so many different layers of interruptions in both hands and graveyards. So overall, I just didn't like those cards. Then Lightning Storm, on the other hand, if there is a sum limit, I out the sum limit. If there isn't a sum limit, I could probably at least trade away things like maybe even IP, maybe an Appaloosa, which is a lot more value than having a Dead Duster hitting the potential imperm there. So that's why I ended up choosing Lightning Storm. It performed way better than I expected, and I did not regret it. So that's these 6 as the quote-unquote anti-summon limit side cards. And last, there is the triple tag. There's one copy of it. I think overall triple tag, despite a lot of people are board breaking with it, I don't think it's that good a card going second. It's only good if you're able to just freely take in an Appaloosa and just capitalize on it. But if that isn't happening, then going second tactics are not really winning me games. I think this is more a going first card. Going first, check my opponent's hand after the first hand trap is almost game winning. But if this is only more a going first card, it shouldn't be taking that many spaces in the side. It's honestly only there because against those board breaking variants, I want to cross out their talents after siding. So that's why there's only one copy. There's only one copy needed. And that's about it. And last but not least, like, you be hearing me talking about minutes of my PTSD from Summer Limit. So obviously, myself gonna capitalize using it, abuse it as much as I can as well. Other people's who haven't thought through it, didn't know how to deal with it, I just win from it. So that pretty much summarizes the whole deck for now. And I guess we will go into a little about the tournaments I actually played. So shout out again to my local Phenomenal Gaming, hosting the PS5 tournament. In this tournament, I think we had like about 31 people, so just short from 6 rounds. After 5 rounds, I won X1, but it was because I won the first 4 rounds guaranteed my spot in top 8, so I just kind of gave the win for the final round, didn't matter. And I think because a group of good people were on vacation from this local, so they didn't show up. Resulted, this tournament has like a more rogue feeling than usual. I played no Snake Eyes in the entire tournament, Swiss and Topka combined. Because I think I was the very few, I think 3 Snake Eyes total that day out of the entire 31 people. And the other 2 were just didn't perform as good. I didn't even get to see them. But I played against a lot of shifter decks, ranging from Cash to Flu to even Vanquish Soul. But like I mentioned in the previous episode, I myself even tried to use shifter in Snake Eye. You think those shifters able to stop me? Not a thing. So I'm pretty sure against the Vanquish Soul guy, even made a Apple plus IP board after being shifter with the help of Parallel Exceed. And my opponent just holding some random Vanquish Soul monster, looking at those big Link monster, scoop. So yeah, that was a PS5. I think Topka of that, I played Voiceless for the first round. Topka, second round was a Dragon Link, and then final was a Runic Stun. And that was actually the first tournament I played Runic Stun. Now I think about it, I think it wasn't as hard a matchup because of how my side was. Because Furnier and Pank were really good outing things like Border and even just posing some threat to the board. And what else? And Lightning Storm, I think I was just doing like the early game post siding. I would just try to poke, try to control, like try to trade away boards with Pank and Furnier. If I'm able to break into it with those, I might just able to get the game. But if not, we enter the game like a mid-game state where I probably got floodgated. I just double tribute set with whatever available in my hand. Flamber, Diabell, or Pank Furnier, even Parallel Exceed or possible thing I can tribute set to get rid of all the face-up card on my field. And then wait until I draw a Lightning Storm. Because like Furnier and other cards existed, I usually able to force out a Scoldron earlier in the game, which means if I Lightning Storm, my opponent won't be able to use Hugin to protect it. And during that one turn I Lightning Storm, I'm able to just OTK for game. So because of that kind of strategy, I wasn't having a hard time dealing with Runic Stun despite it was the first day I played against it in this format. And I think I won like all my Runic Stun matchup during this tournament. And eventually, yes, I won the PS5. Very lucky, but worth it. So, then, let's go back to the list. So with that, the following weekend, I went to Catskill Regional in Upper New York, which I think it had about 250-ish people, 255. That means we were one short from an extra round. And I played the same list from the PS5 tournament. Because, well, I didn't drop a single match at the PS5 tournament. Didn't know what to change. Didn't know what need to be changed. So I just played the same thing. And at the Catskill Regional, we played 8 rounds. I ended with X11. 6-1-1. Let's see, what happened? Round 1, that was my loss, actually. I played against a Snake Eye Mirror. It was a pure, like the Jet version with Synchros. I think I just drew bad. Game 1, I went second. My only hand trap was like a Veiler. And I had a lot of high star monster in hand. It was like combination of Flamber, Diabell, maybe even Parallel. So, a lot of engine pieces. One Veiler obviously didn't do enough, so I got full comboed. And then my opponent instead had hand trap, had like an Ashen and Imperm after being full comboed. So yeah, that's a doom game 1. Game 2 I won because I went first, had some limit. I think I did get hand trapped, didn't really full combo, but some limit which is way too broken, and I have 2 of them if I remember correct. So I eventually won game 2. Game 3 I did open a lot of hand trap. I think it was Nib Veiler Droll. Yeah, that was the 3. My opponent went first, summon Snake Ash. Usually I probably could just hold my hand trap, throw them at the end. But my other combo pieces were too popular. Not good enough to deal with a lot of things, or play into a lot of things. So I feel like I need this Nib to be summoned, which means, assume everyone is playing cross out, I had to use something impactful enough to force out a cross out, and then hope the Nib is able to lend to the board, guaranteed. So next turn, even if my popular gets stopped by my opponent hand trap, I can still have a Hida line. So that was my logic. Obviously, this line get punished by triple attack. But that was just the debate. Do I want to play around Crossout? Do I want to play around Talons? They conflict. So I knew it's just Valor, the Snake Eye Ash on summon, hoping there's a Crossout. There wasn't a Crossout, but there was a Talon. Look at my hand. Took away the Droll and ended on 4 summon. He made a very kind of shitty board almost. But it was just within 4 summons. However, he saw the double popular in my hand, knowing it was just enough. So that resulted in me losing the match, because I think my top deck was another hand trap, and a single popular is not enough to play into a single IP, which I think I lost that. But looking back to it, I don't think I made the wrong call. Well, I don't think I made a misplay. It was just a risky call, almost a 50-50 call, and I think there's guaranteed more crossouts than Talons. More so maybe like a 6-4 or a 55-45 kind of percent ratio. So I just choose the bigger one by book, but what didn't hit. So at the end, I wasn't that mad about it. It's just how the game is, right? So that was round 1, that was my loss. Then the following few rounds, it was just because I was in the X1 squad, it just kind of feel a bit more rogue. Like I think round 2, I even got a no-show. I don't know why, but my opponent probably just, showed up, wake up early in the morning, lost round 1, saw round 2 as my name, yeah, go home. Probably that's the case. I don't know. I didn't even see my opponent, just got a no-show. Round 3 was a Manadian, so it's kind of just destroyed him because I drew Droll. Round 4, I believe, was a Cash. He shifted me, but I didn't care. So that's the end of it. Round 5 was a tier. Surprising to see a tier in this current format. Game 1, I kind of full comboed, I think. I ended a pretty big board with a lot of hand traps in my hand. But my opponent searched first and use a super poly on resolution to dodge my draw, and then start milling, or correct myself, start picking cards out of his stack as his mills. I saw, I think, 8 life cards out of 3 mill 3. So out of 9 mills, he had 8 cards that benefit him, avoiding draw. That was how broken his mills were. To the point, yeah, he made a Baron out of nowhere by just milling some extra cards, and like I wasn't able to deal with that. So I lost game 1, but game 2 I went first. He was lucky 1 game. He's not gonna be lucky all 3 games. So game 2 I destroyed him. Game 3 he went first, because the game 1, like I mentioned, it was a kind of back and forth in that 1 turn. With a lot of milling, a lot of broken milling happened, so burned a lot of time. Game 3 time was very close. He started the game, Summon Furnier. I look at my hand. There was a auto wing time combo being Nip plus Mourner. But this Furnier is still looking kind of threatening. I want to force some threats or force some pressures to the board. So I Mourner the Furnier on summon after thinking about it. Then he looked at his hand. His hand wasn't that strong. Furnier is probably like the best card or the most alive card in his hand. He went normal summon Rhino, straight sending a tier name. I was a bit confused, thinking he might want to go for like a Toad line, which might be annoying for me to deal with. But he just straight fused a Shadow monster with the tier into a window and set back 1 pass. So his ending board was Furnier, Rhino, a back row, a hand left, and a window. With almost time. I look at my hand, Nib is dead. He didn't even summon 5. Even he does, I won't be able to summon it because of the window. But my other cards in hand were quite broken. I draw for turn, draw face wanted just to play around draw. First move, summon my Furnier, battle phase, attack the window, not use Furnier's effect. There is a back row there. That card could be Soliak Frontier, which makes sense if it is. If I activate my Furnier, try to remove something being extra greedy, gets Solic. He will send his Rhino. I don't. The Rhino won't. The Rhino can summon back, but won't be able to fuse anything because the window's on the board. He will reach his special summons. But because I activate my effect, his Furnier will trigger banish my Furnier, resulting me not able to beat over the window to even play for game main phase 2. And when time's getting close, I won't get another turn. I will just lose on spot because of time. So I decided to not even use Furnier at that point. Straight beating over the window, and then for some damage on the board. Main phase 2, summon Pankratops. Yes, I had both. And then after Pank, I let the Pank sets there. In case it was a Solic, I can just, if that is a Solic, I'm chaining my Pank to pop it so the Solic doesn't negate. And he might get a search, but he has to pray his tier catch hits. But then it probably gonna burn time, so I'm gonna wait in time because the Furnier on the window already did 200 damage. So I can just keep it. If I pop it early, he might get tier catch, do the play, and hit something. Then stop my plays and maybe end the turn early because of doing that. So all I need to do is just let it stand there, waiting until I need it. Then I go special Diabel, start comboing, and I think he had his Furnier. He held it, but he just eventually never really used it. I comboed for a bit times call, make a Agave Dragon to seal time even more. His back row was a dead Trigger Karma at the end, so it didn't matter. At the end, I won by time even without Agave, but that was a very scary matchup. I was probably one of the few times that I full combo and lost game 1, where it's like he's so drawing hand traps. But then 1-1 round 6, I think was a Runic Stun. Yeah, it was a Runic Stun. It was a relatively decently good player in that area. Was Runic Stun. Game 1, I think I lost. I mean, most likely I lost. The game 1 win percent is very low against Runic Stun. Makes sense. Game 2, I think he sold as many cards as I can from my deck. I was thinning my deck arguably more than my opponent. We entered a very grindy game state where I almost deck out myself. Yes, I pull out enough combo pieces and draw enough cards more than my opponent banish my top deck. And eventually I collected as many Ash Blossom and Bell for his Runic Fountain and put him on no cards and eventually killed him. I think I was also looping Ash in the middle with my Sunlight. Just summon, I think I purposely put Sunlight or Revive Sunlight into an extra deck zone, into zone 4, pointing to one extra deck zone while using my monster occupying the other one. So whenever my opponent summon a Runic, I get to trigger my Sunlight and retrieve a fire, or retrieve specifically another copy of Ash Blossom from my graveyard. So because this Ash loop, my opponent really never got any additional cards of his Fountain or other draw cards. And eventually he just died because he ran out of things. So that definitely happened. And then game 3, he opened bad. To the point, I think not enough floodgates. It was only a Synchro Zone. So I just played, I think I impermed the border, start play a bit, walking to some of the Runic spell, full comboed it, and then popped the Synchro Zone in the battle phase with probably Atlantis, and won. So that was a scary matchup, but glad it went well for me. Round 7, I think was what was it? Oh, it was a Sprite Purity. I don't remember detail much, but it really got to the point. I full comboed turn 1 with Hiso drawing some hand traps, but my opponent's opening were so strong that I think he started with purely pitching Angler, and then all he's purely later in the turn hit probably one of the best thing for him during the entire game 1. It's almost like another opponent just picking cards for their RNGs. So eventually I couldn't prevent a big Nor to be summoned, and I got like a 7 material Nor passing back to me. I forgot one of my Flamberg Dragon was taken by Pretty Memory underneath the Nor. So in my turn while I was breaking boards, I completely forgot it. So I did everything assuming my second Flamberg was in my deck. Until eventually for the final summon, I activated one of my Snake Eye, didn't find my Flamberg, and then realized it was underneath the Nor. And that resulted me quickly realizing, yeah, it wasn't breakable at that point. I couldn't even touch the Nor, and got everything spun back to the deck. So I made a decision where most players would do at that point, just not scooping. That whole game one was very back and forth with a couple turns of some big plays. Burned a lot of time. If I scoop that game one, it will, even if I go first game two, have a blowout, most likely will enter in game three with time being called on his turn. Knowing my opponent have some sprite cards, not surprised he will be something like a Resonator to gaining life in time, which most likely if I scoop, it will just be a draw or more likely to be my opponent winning. So I made what most players would do, just sits there, not scooping. I wasn't slow playing, but I was just not scooping. I let my opponent actually made another Nor or Zeus and actually punch me to death. And then time was not much time left. We started game. We sided. We started game two, and I just won game two with time with Agave and pushed for a draw. At that point, we were round 7, resulting myself X11 going to final round. 250 people X11. I was expecting to have like a top 8. I mean, the odds of that happening is pretty high. X11 making to top 8, right? However, because we were so close to the breaking line for rounds 8 or 9 rounds, that resulted there's way more X1s than usual. Like you see on the screen right now for the standings, there were 6 X1s after final round 8, and pushed the X11 into very low. And because I lost round 1, my tiebreaker is relatively low as well. So I ended up barely making into top 8. And forgot to say my final round was another Kashtira, but yeah, he shifted me. But you think I really care? I was prepared. So yeah, that was the Catskill Regional. Despite it was not as like I didn't make to top 8, but it was still awarding 32 invites, getting me 23 points at 10th place. And my only loss was the mirror drawing bad, and so that's not really a bad thing in my eyes. It just things that should happen. So overall, I think I was decently happy about my performance at the Catskill Regional. So moving on, there was a Philadelphia Regional the weekend after. I decided to make some changes on my list. The first thing I decided was take out Saling for access code. You probably it's not something like you will imagine hearing from anyone, right? Like Saling access is always just a package deal that if you either don't run any of them or you run both. Or you run Saling to Turbo or some other Link Force like Apple, which a lot of other people were doing. However, here's the thing. At the Catskill Regional, I think I used every single of my extra deck cards except Saling. Well, I did also use Saling, but was during the Runic Stun matchup where I'm out of things that can pointing down for my Zelantis. So I summoned the Saling just to open the arrow to get another pops. But besides that, because how my combo line's been going up, because turn 1 I'm turboing out Hiso, I rarely have situation where I want to use my Saling turn 1 turn whatever on the top into an Appaloosa. That hasn't happened for me a while. And without that, there are also the cases where, games I just don't see a spellcaster, or I just don't have enough spells. So Saline it's almost dead half of the time. And because of that, I was like, yeah, I think Axes can come up more often than Saline now. They're running Axes or having Axes available in the extra deck turn on another very detrimental play for Runics. Because I can just make an IP Axis, and that thing is untouchable by Runic. It's possible to out, but it's very hard for them to out it. And if it stays for one turn and they don't have the right floodgates, that could just win on the spot. So having that, like, I changed it. I think this is actually a good attempt, good thing to have, a better thing to have. Specifically looking at the rising usage of Runic Stun, or even just stun decks in general. And obviously, I never miss the Axis just just popping everything on the board. Despite in this deck, it's probably only popping 2, is Dark and Fire. That's usually enough. The attack, like missing Saline, missing the extra Link body, jumping from Link 2 to 4, is probably fine, because Snake Guy and Paraloid Seeds are providing so many Link bodies by themselves. Having just an extra body left on the board for Axis, it's easy to do. And missing a Link 3, like Hiso's probably usually dead or just not, like won't come up in when making Axis. Making only a 43 Axis is also fine. The attack isn't the biggest selling point at this point in the deck. If I need attack, if I need damage to OTK, I have the original like Raging Phoenix Atlantis line. But if I need to destroy things on the board or even force out things, I think Axis is just doing the job better than Saline, than for the purpose in the extra deck. So yeah, I made this change, and I will say I personally didn't get to summon it. But my testing partners from the Chinese core, they used the same or similar list. They were summoning this thing way more often than I expected. And yeah, this was definitely a good change. And the other change, main deck didn't happen. Nothing changed. Nothing need to be changed. During the week, I did go through a session where I tried myself to fit the third copy of Ash Blossom in addition to whatever it is. But I couldn't find what to cut, and I don't want to make it 41. So after switching around a lot of things, I was just saying, yeah, whatever I had is probably just a better way. Even like Ash, yes, it's better against Stun, but it's like I really can't see myself like changing much in that game up by just having another Ash. So I just went with no changing my main. Then side deck, Dogwood. Yeah, it's time for me to say goodbye to it. I haven't seen that card. I haven't even feel like I need the card at all. So I got rid of it. The first thing, because the rising usage of stun, I added was Feather Duster. I don't even put it in mirror. Despite there might be some limit, there's just not enough thing I can side out to even put this in. And there's the reason I mentioned, if my opponent don't draw some limit, it's kind of dead. Unlike the other cards still doing the job, like doing other jobs fantastically. This is realistically just a anti-stun thing. And there is the last spot in my side. Which, yeah, I made a bet with my friend. See, during my siding pattern, where I would keep cross out going second, and putting a sum limit so I can cross out sum limit. Me and my friend were just joking around and see like, yeah, we have one last card in my side deck. What kind of thing would be good or fun to do? Since we're already keeping cross out in the voiceless matchup for a sum limit, we might as well adding another one, right? Like, how do they deal with this non-targeting negate calling Skull Guardian? So Yeah, it made into my side for Philly Regional. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play a single voiceless. But there's one guy who copied my list who did and crossed out the Skull Guardian, and it was hilarious. So that's pretty much my Philly Regional list. Not many things changed at all. And let me see. At the Philly Regional, we played 9 rounds. It was again 510 people. We were 3 away for another round. So back to back. I had 3 tournaments. We just missing one, very few players to make the tournament easier. Because if you don't know the math, the closer you are getting to this breaking line, the harder the tournament is. 510 is like breaking 500, so it started awarding 64 invites. It's a lot easier to get invite in Philly. But because it's still below 512, it's 9 rounds. It's very hard to top 8 with this kind of settings. As you see at the end in the standing, what I'm showing right now, there were so many X1s, and the X11s start at 8th place, which means out of 9 rounds, if you go into X11 you're pretty much doomed. During the entire Philly Regional, I started with 7-0 for my round 1 was, I think, a hero guy, so I won. I nibbed him. Round 2 was a Ubel without the new cards from incoming sets. The deck isn't good yet, so I destroyed him. Round 3, I think, was a Manadian. I drew my draws. Oh, I Hiso drawing to 2 hand traps. I won. Round 4 was a Snake Eyes. It was one of my friend. This was one of the funny game. I lost dice roll, went second game 1. I think double hand trap my opponent, but he's still able to end on things. I think his ending was like Princess in Graveyard with Flamber and IP in the back, and then good enough things. My turn, I draw. He tried to I think Flamber the IP out. I cross out the Flamber because my hand were good enough to play into it. I normal Ash did like a parallel play, I think. My opponent nibbed me on the summon of Banshee, and because that nib, let me see. Because of that nib, it triggered my field spell to summon my Oak from the back row, and my Oak bring out another thing. Oak and then the nib token into a Hida, summon out anything into my Princess, then did the Zelantis OTK line after being nibbed. So that was how it is. My opponent did have a Princess he just never used, but he couldn't really use it early because he had a nibbing hand. However, even if he did use, it will still trigger my field spell. So I'm getting the same amount of monster no matter what, maybe arguably even more. So at the end, yeah, that was a very interesting game too for me to just break into boards with my engines almost. And game 2, my opponent kind of brick. He goes set 2 pass, I Lightning Storm. That's the end of it. So yeah, that was round 4. Round 5 was another Manadian. Well, I didn't know where I found all those Manadian players, but there was another one, and I drew Joel. Game 2. That's it. Round 6 was a pure Snake Eye. Was it? Yeah, it was a pure Snake Eye. I knew the guy was on pure Snake Eye because the round before he was sitting next to me playing against one of my friend. And then we played, I think, game 1. It was a bit back and forth with hand traps and other thing. I eventually won because I have a better hand. After grinding though. But game 2, he also kind of bricked, set 2 pass. I go, my turn, Lightning Storm, game. So yeah, I guess I was definitely lucky that day. Round 7 was a Fire King Snake Eye. So game 1, I hand trapped my opponent. He couldn't. I I think I had a very crucial nib to the point where he didn't have any fire monster left for Fire King Island to continue. So that won me the game almost on spot. And I just comboed through his last Valor left hand and killed him. That was game 1. Game 2, oh yeah, that was the funny one. Game 2, my opponent started with Lullaby first move, called Snake Eye Ash. I handed Ash to my opponent, and immediately after, trolled him. He decided to summon a Diabell, pitching, I think, Forgotten Oak, I think? Yeah. Summon Diabell. I mortared the Diabell. So he looked at his hand, he thought about it, he activated a second copy of Lullaby, calling Ash Blossom. I was expecting a Baron being summoned because I can only special summon the Ash since draw is being used. Since there's also a Diabell next to it. But because my opponent is on Fire King, there's no synchros in the extra die. He just ended up linking away into Hida, summon the Ash again, into a Princess, try to get the Oak back to do combos. I Valor the Princess. So at that game state, it's very simplified. I had 2 cards left in my hand. They are both wanted. My opponent had a Princess on the field, and then nothing really activating, and 2 cards left in hand, including one of them being my copy of Snake Eye Ash. He looked at it, he just passed turn. My turn, I drew, okay, Lightning Storm the Princess, wanted first, and then Lightning Storm the Princess, Diabell pitched the other wanted summon, got Valored. So that at that point, I had a Diabell, nothing else. Nothing really activating the graveyard. My graveyard is 4 different hand trap and 2 wanted. My opponent has 1 card left in hand, it was my Ash, and also nothing else, right? I look at everything, I thought about, you know what, battle phase, a tough game. How? Because he Lullaby twice, that's 2K, that's 4K here. I mortared his Diabell that he linked away, that's 25 once. And my Diabell attack for another 25. That's 2K, 25 for 9K for game. Yeah, the game just ended like that. It was definitely a funny one for how it went, but yeah, I got that game. I got the match. So that was round 7. It was a pretty funny one for how it went. Then round 8, I played against the Runic Stun, the guy who ended being first place undefeated in Swiss. He was, let's just say it this way, he was fated to win to that day. How? We sat down, we drew our opening hand, then we were told we got a deck check, despite we already saw our opening hand, but we didn't play anything. My opponent looked very, very disappointed, but still, after a little bit of argument, handed the deck to deck check. Later, he told me he opened the best card in the deck, Card of Demise, and he didn't want to, he tried to argue and tried to not give up the Card of Demise, which, okay, main fair, Runic players, but still, we got our deck back after deck checking, we shuffled, we restart game 1, we drew our new opening hand. It doesn't matter what I draw, because that's how the game 1 usually is. My opponent goes, Tip Search Fountain, activate set 3, Card of Demise. Yeah, he drew the 1-up again. So, that's how the game 1 went. Game 2, my hand were just bad. I opened game 2, my hand was Ash, Oak, Poplar, Field, I think. Complete all engine cards. Yes, I could make IP access and just sit there and hope he couldn't out it, but hindsight looking back to it, he had a skill drain, which is one of the very few outs to access. So, well, it's like I can access banish itself, but after banish itself, I'm permanently losing the access, so it's no longer posing enough threat to the Runic side. However, what was it? I decided to, my gut feeling telling me making IP access is not going to be good enough. I need to see more cards. I need to draw more cards because my hands are so engine heavy. I decided to go through the Hiso line, ended on Hiso and other things. Enough monster that doesn't matter if it's Lava Golem or Sphere Mode, I still have backup. My Hiso, unfortunately, drew me more engine pieces. It was like birch and bonfire, I think. Unfortunately, my draws were so shit, so we entered a unfortunate mid game where I got floodgated and I got decked out. So yeah, that was game 2. That was a whole match. Looking back to it, I don't think I made a wrong call. It just there was no way out. In my career, there definitely has been situations where my gut feeling is telling me opposite thing than what my brain was telling me to do. But in that game, I think my gut feeling was yelling, yeah, there's just no way out. So I did whatever I wanted to. And yeah, obviously it didn't work. So that was round 8, my first loss. At that point, I was X1 going to the final round. I faced another of my friend who's X02, and I know he was on Rescue Ace. Game 1, I summoned my Diabell. My opponent activated Imperm and declaring Valor, and I know I was doomed after that. But not like I have any other play to do. I had to normal summon my Ashe afterwards. Got Valored. What a surprise. And I kind of just passed after that. My opponent's hand after that was Rhoda for Airlifter to eventually got Emergency with a Bonfire and Wanted and another Valor for my turn 3 comeback. So yeah, let's just say he drew his Exodia hand in his 51 card Rescue Ace deck and won that game 1. Yeah, similar as like the tier match I had during Catskill. So this guy can get lucky. One game, he's not gonna get lucky. All 3 of them. Game 2, my opponent only had a Nib with a Lightning Storm. But because how the combo line is, Nib alone doesn't do anything. And the Lightning Storm alone doesn't do anything. I won the game 2. Game 3, my opponent's hand were just bad. He started game with Emergency, and I immediately knew his hand was bad. He goes summon Hydrant straight search Turbulence in case of draw, I guess. Summon Turb, I motor the Turb on a spot, on a summon. He goes, that's fine. No more summon I think a hand trap, forgot what that is. All 3 monsters into Princess, take 3k from the Mourner. Princess the Turb back. I was like, cool, on summon, 5th summon Nib. And that's pretty much it. That's the game. And my turn, I think I just summoned anything. Walk into, was there even one hand trap? Maybe not. It just didn't matter. So yeah, that was the Philly Regional. I end with X1, only lose to the undefeated Runic Stun, and then got 2nd place. We had over 500 people. That's 63 points for Worlds, which is a pretty good weekend. So overall, in the past 2 weekends, I awarded 89. Wait, no, it was 23, 63, 86 points just from 2 weekends, which making the World Grind looking a lot better now. Because since, as you may know, I haven't really topped any Ys this whole Yu-Gi-Oh year. So kind of behind on points, but now I think I'm back on track again. Next few weekends, I will be going to Hartford Regional in the incoming weekend. And hopefully getting up to like either 32 or 48 points there. And then Weiss's Raleigh the weekend after. So yeah, that's pretty much the entire busy April. We had a very busy February, a completely empty March with nothing, and now back to a busy April again. And by the time this video gets uploaded, may or may not there will be a banless. So maybe the deck list I'm showing may or may not be viable anymore. But I'll say I'm back. Break is over. Yu-Gi-Oh isn't at the best, but it's still kind of fun to figure out things. And I hope you like the video. Make sure you like it, subscribe to the channel, share it to your friends, teammates, whoever you want. And that being said, I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.